You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey all, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 73, and I'm Clark from 5 Card Guys on Instagram. And with me is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. Okay, so off the top today, I actually wanted to say a quick thanks to our listeners and subscribers at the beginning of this episode instead of at the end like we usually do, because lately we've been getting our fair share of DMs with some real kind words and positive feedback. So yeah, we just wanted to let y'all know we read each one and we definitely appreciate you guys. You know, like Sheldon and Kevin Leahy, who gave us a positive review this past week on Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much. It definitely helps us get our podcast out there to more people to hopefully enjoy as well. And two, if you haven't read the August edition of the PSA magazine that's out right now, there's a story in there about Topps Stadium Club Baseball celebrating 30 years. And I was lucky enough to be interviewed for that story, where I once again try my best to give more love and respect to the Stadium Club baseball set.
Nice.
Definitely give it a read if you can. I was also able to plug our podcast in that story as well.
Let's go.
Here we go. So yeah, anyway, that was just a quick plug for that. And I don't know, maybe this will help get Stadium Club back from underrated status to properly rated. I don't know what else we can do at this point.
I don't think that will happen though, but it's all right. More ripping for us, right?
Yeah, for sure. While prices are modest. All right. So just want to get that out of the way. Let's get right into the show now with hobby headlines. So besides all the news about the MLB trade deadline last week, there were other sports news as well that could have a potential hobby impact. One of them was Mike Trout being injured again with something that initially sounded scary, and then apparently it isn't anymore. But, then it looks like it's something he'll have to manage essentially the rest of his playing career. So that got me a little nervous, and I started to ask myself, am I still all in on Mike Trout, even if his cards dip a little, right? So I wanted to ask you guys the same question, and then I have a few more names afterwards to see if you're concerned about those players mid to long term, and if it's changed your mind at all, whether you still invest in their cards or not. All right. But yeah, let's start with Trout. Concerned at all with this latest injury of his spine, I believe?
Oh man, I'm a little concerned, Clark. Mm-hmm. This is the first time I'm really concerned about Mike Trout.
That's what I'm saying.
I know. The news came out where it was like, what? And then Trout came out saying it's not as serious as they kind of said, but obviously it's serious. And then it got me thinking. A lot of people started making the comparison with Pujols and Trout. First 10 years. Pujols actually had a better first 10 years than Trout. And then once he hit the age 30, injuries and the production just came to a halt. So I could see, and trust me, I'm very optimistic. I still, no doubt, Mike Trout is, was on pace to be one of the greatest of all time, right? So I do get a little concerned right now, especially at his age and the trajectory of usually what happens, in the second, like Ken Griffey Jr. You look at Griffey Jr.'s, first, 10 years or so, this guy is, hitting 49 home runs, hitting 300 plus, driving in 140 runs. And, from his 30 to 40, it just kind of halted his production, right? And that worries me a bit about Trout's card. I know we talked about it before, how I believe that, even the PSA 10 Trout card would have hit about $1,000,
Right.
And maybe it can happen now with a lot of people, because I think a lot of the mentality is at with Trout is a lot of people had him as a long-term hold, right? And for the first time, I hear people talking and questioning, is he a long-term hold? And these are serious people that have been invested in Trout, right? So, like, God forbid, I still believe in Trout. Like, he's a specimen, and hopefully he could still be able to, produce. But I mean, you even look at his, stolen base numbers. I mean, this guy has two stolen bases in the last two seasons, coming from 49 stolen base season, and doing that every year for the first 10 years, right? So, for me, I'm still interested in investing in Mike Trout, but I'm also monitoring prices to see how low it can actually go, because I think this is bad news in terms of the investment portion for Trout. So yeah, I'm pretty concerned.
Okay. I know nothing about costovertebral dysfunction, if that's even how you say it. So I decided to read up on it. And a surgeon at USC was saying, costovertebral dysfunction is not something that requires surgery, can be resolved in a matter of weeks and maintained with exercises and physical therapy. No, I don't think it's career threatening. Once the inflammation in the joint goes down, he'll be able to return to full activity. And that's talking about Mike Trout. So that certainly sounds positive. But whenever you're talking about the word dysfunction with spine or back, something he has to live with, something that he's going to maintain for the rest of his career, that all sounds scary and not good and not ultimately positive. So I'm with you guys in that, it sounds like it's not a big deal, but at the same time it does, for the first time, give me a lot more concern or caution before really spending some kind of money on Mike Trout. I have not done that yet, but this certainly makes it a little bit scarier, without question. So I could see that also happening with the general market for Mike Trout. So there might be some softening to be had in Mike Trout cards within the next little bit. Who knows? But we'll see. He could also come back and start crushing homers and doing his usual thing, and people will just completely forget. So we'll see what happens. But there's no question there's a bit of concern.
Yeah. For me, it's like he's a player now where I think when he is healthy, that caveat, when he's healthy, he's the top guy.
Sure.
But when is he going to be fully healthy? When is he going to be able to play a full season? It's been a while since he's done
6
that.
seasons,
right?
man. It's been 6 seasons.
Yeah, it's yeah. So, even the beginning of this season, I'm like, you know what? I'm all in still. Like Mike Trout, generational player. If I see prices dip, then I might pounce on getting a Mike Trout, rookie auto. Like that's one of my Grail cards too.
Right.
But after reading this, like something changed. Like you said, to hear this is something he might have to manage his whole life and certainly his playing career. Like you just don't know how your body is going to react, right? From day to day, from week to week.
Right.
And then it might require, like he might be a player that just is able to play 120, 130 games a season.
Right.
And that's going to make an impact in his overall numbers. He's still going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Is he going to be number one? I don't know, right?
No, far from it. Like that's the thing. It's like he has to continue what he's been doing for his first 10 seasons and like beyond, right? So it's like, he stopped his running game and that's the thing. It's like, I still think he's a sound investment because if you look at, he has a career WAR of 80, that's good enough to get you into the Hall of Fame, if his career ended. But that's the thing. The flip side is you're talking about like GOAT status that people are talking about to if his career numbers ended today, we're not even sniffing, really kind of like Hall of Fame numbers. Right. So that's the other story to it. But yeah, I'm hopeful, even for the sake of the game, that he's able to overcome this. And, he is that kind of like blue chip investment that everybody thought he was, just for the sake of the hobby and, the people invested in him. So I don't know. It's tough, right? I would just be wary, and just monitor prices. There might be good deals to be had in the coming months.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like if it hits a really low number, if like people are just off in waves, and it might be just a perfect opportunity where I just can't not buy it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But right now, at least, it certainly made me think about maybe potentially investing in other GOAT players than Trout right now. You know what I mean? Like there are other players I'm looking at more now than Trout. So, okay, that was a big one. Like I said in the introduction to this segment, I want to kind of pick other players that we might think of similarly, where we were really confident in at one point or another, and then now we're like, I don't know. Maybe we have to rethink it. So I want to pick an athlete from each major sport. We'll go to basketball. Kawhi Leonard, he was a Toronto darling when he brought home the championship for us. Even when he played for the Raptors, he was on load management, the infamous load management, and since he's been with the Clippers, he hasn't been healthy full season, torn ACL last season or the season before that. So that's a serious injury. Kawhi Leonard, I don't know if you were ever really in on him, but how about now if you had a chance to buy his rookie patch auto?
He looks pretty good right now. I don't know if you've seen him. He's been working out. He's been playing some games at UC Santa Barbara, some games, and it made me think of Klay Thompson a bit. Like Klay Thompson had an ACL that he was gone for 2 seasons or something like that, and he came back pretty strong. So I'm realizing, guys like Acuna going through these ACLs, it's different than it was 20 years ago. So I'm hoping that he comes out hot with the Clippers, and I think there's some buying opportunity because they might be a contender, and it'll be interesting to see if he bounces back. If he left off where he was, I think there's a lot of room in his prices to grow for sure.
Okay.
Look at Young scouting basketball. Damn.
I know. You know what? Because I've always wanted Kawhi cards because there's like the Tiger Prizm that we are always after in the Raptors jersey that was just like hanging out for like $400. No one's even touching it. It's like, it's like, so I don't know. I'm a bit of a Kawhi fan, I guess. I don't mind collecting him.
Yeah,
it's all right.
When you say Kawhi Leonard, you're speaking to the probably the wrong crowd in terms of giving advice, because as a Canadian Torontonian, there's no question Kawhi has a soft spot in our hearts, and every Canadian probably feels the urge, to have some sort of Kawhi PC card. So is he on our list to buy something of Kawhi? Sure he is. He's always been on my list to pick up something of Kawhi's eventually. For the rest of the world that doesn't care about Kawhi as much, I think it's pretty tough, man. He's had some significant injuries. I think Kawhi is going to be, my personal opinion, I think he's going to be on load management for the rest of his career. I don't see him as a player that is going to play 82 games, not even close, maybe not even 65 games. It is what it is, and that's just... I know whatever team that has him is going to do that to make sure that they get the most elite effort out of him on a game-to-game basis, which is tough to see because I think Kawhi, when you just watch him, and we've watched him that season, and when, Spurs fans watched him, he's certainly a special player. I think had he not gotten injured, and perhaps maybe he got a third ring, I could see, for me at least, in terms of just seeing special players. Over the lifetime of me watching basketball, we have seen special players. Jordan, Kobe, Hakeem, Shaq. There are special players. And to be honest, Kawhi, from what I witnessed, he is a special player. But I don't think he's going to get that recognition. I don't know. I think he deserves to be in top 20 at some point, but I don't think he's going to get there because he's just been too injured. And I see him like Peter Forsberg in hockey. I think Peter Forsberg could have went down as one of the all-time greatest hockey players, but the injury just prevented him from ever being in that kind of conversation.
Right.
So I can see that for Kawhi as well. So in terms of long-term investment, I mean, his cards are so low right now. So, you could get in on it, but I could see money being spent elsewhere if we're being quite honest in terms of like long term, short term. I'd probably stay away from Kawhi, but the three of us, we are going to pick up a Kawhi PC at some point, so we're on it. But the rest of the world, I would say no. Kawhi's a no go.
Okay. Well, you know what? Speak for yourselves. I'm still salty you left the Raptors to go to the Clippers. So screw Kawhi, all right?
Oh, I'm salty too, but it's weird. I still love him. I hate him and I love him, you know?
Right. Yeah, he did bring us that championship. So yeah. I'm with you, John. Like, I don't know if he's gonna ever hit that top 20 status because he'll be limited in his playing time. I'm on. Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. And I don't know. We talked about Kawhi before. Like, you know, in basketball, it's about big stars, and he just doesn't have that personality. You know, like I think he's hilarious personally, just the way he acts around the league and just him being Kawhi. Yeah. But you know, people in the hobby, a lot of them want the KD types or, you know, Steph Curry, people that are media savvy, and, you know, not a awkward type around media. So I think there's a limit and there's a cap to how much Kawhi cards can go for. So as a PC, for sure, you know, you do you, but yeah, I'm not so sure as an investment piece, my opinion.
Right.
Okay, let's go to hockey, and I'm gonna throw out Evgeni Malkin out there. He just signed a big contract with the Penguins. I guess he's gonna end his career there. Mm-hmm. But you know, if you look at his latest injuries, 2 major knee injuries in his career, another year older. How old is he now? Like 36, 37?
He's old. He's getting up there.
Mid-30s.
He might be older.
Sure. No, he's not that old, is he?
Let's check.
I feel like he's mid-30s, but yeah. Well,
34?
While you guys check.
No, is he? No, he can't be 37. Come on. 35.
36.
36.
35?
36. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, he is that old. Jeez.
Yeah. So, you know, Malkin, and he signed this big contract. He's going to play with the Penguins, and, you know, is he going to be one of those types, I wonder, like, that's just going to fade? You know what I mean? Because he's older. He might be in, you know, I don't know if he's going to play another full 80 game season.
Right.
He's going to make it the Hall, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's a buy. I think he's just too cheap. Like, we talked about this in previous episodes. Like, these guys are, you know, still generational talent in my opinion, and they've left their legacy where, you know, they're going to be Hall of Famers, right? So you look at from a long-term perspective and look at where prices are right now. Yeah, you might not be able to flip it in 2 weeks, but like, we've talked about it in the last, you know, many episodes, get out of that mentality and see what are great sound investments. And I think based on his prices for who he is and what he's done in his career, I think he's so cheap. Yep. So I think he's a buy in my opinion.
Yep. I agree too. We talked about Malkin a couple of episodes ago. Surprised that he re-signed with Pittsburgh. As a fan, I love seeing it. It's great to see him committed to the entire organization for the lifetime of his career. In terms of hobby love, I think had he gone to the Capitals or some sort of different buzz had happened, we would have seen his card spike. Good news is if you've been searching for Malkin, this has probably sort of flattened his price rather than hyping it up, even though he did re-sign. So that's the good news. Yeah, I'm with Young. He's in the Hall right now, no question. He's one of the greatest Russian hockey players of all time, one of the greatest hockey players of all time. Multiple Stanley Cups. You know, I think if you were in it, again, very hard to find his Future Watch auto in a PSA 10 or whatever grade you're going for. But if you happen to see it come out in auction, I could, you know, had he got traded, I could see it probably had been selling for $1,000, maybe upwards of $1,500. Because he went back to Pittsburgh, you could probably, you know, it might be a bit of a sleeper pickup. I think the last one sold for like $740, which was a steal. I'm not sure if we'll see that price, but if you could get it for $850, I don't know. You know, maybe I'm dreaming. I think it's probably $1,000 card, but even at $900, $850, you know, if you're in it for the long term, if you're in to investing for the long term, if you're into betting on hockey, being the next one up to spike in the hobby, I think Evgeni Malkin is one of those investments. I think it's pretty good. So, yeah, I think he's a buy.
Yeah, I'm not sold. To tell you the truth, like he's in the Hall, but like people have short-term memories, right? They're gonna remember his last 3-4 years of this contract. He will be 39 if he completes the contract. It out, yeah. So, like I looked at his numbers. Like when he's playing, he's kind of like Trout, right? When he's playing, his numbers are point per game. Like he's there,
solid.
But can he play a full season to get those, get those quantity numbers up, right? So I don't know. We'll see. And we just checked his age, 36, so 37 next year.
Yeah.
Penguins themselves are getting older, right? Aren't they?
Yep.
Crosby's not getting any younger either. So who knows what the Penguins will do as an organization, but yeah, as a fan, sure. Like you love seeing, that's rare to see players play out their whole career for one team, and just shows the value that they have for that particular team. But yeah, as a hobbyist, if I'm just like a, investor type, especially, like there's just opportunities elsewhere for me.
Right.
But that being said, I love Malkin too, and he definitely deserves more respect for sure.
A lot more respect, Clark. A lot more respect.
Right. Well, here's another thought, right? You know how Future Watch autos have started to pop off? Because Future Watch is relatively new. I mean, when did it? I think Future Watch autos came out during the Crosby year. I think, was that the first Future Watch auto? Anyways, it wasn't. It was probably like early 2000s.
Okay.
So now we're gonna start seeing Future Watch auto Hall of Famers. So that's just a thought, right? All the Hall of Famers in hockey is O-Pee-Chee and some of these sort of like older vintage, modern vintage cards. But Future Watch has been the sets to collect. And now we're talking Hall of Famers within Future Watch autos. Could be something to think about.
Right.
I like that. I like that take. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Let's wrap up this segment with a football player. This is a little bit different. It's not really an injury concern. Kyler Murray. And I don't know if you know the news on Kyler Murray. I can't remember. He signed a huge contract, I think, over 4 years as well, with the Arizona Cardinals. And there was this fiasco in the news where apparently in his contract, there was an independent study clause, essentially making sure he did his homework and, almost treating him with kid gloves, despite being a top tier quarterback in a professional league. Right. And I think at the end of the day, the news got to Kyler Murray, and the Cardinals organization didn't want to deal with the headache of this story being out there. So they took away that independent study clause from their contract.
Crazy,
right.
Yeah.
But then I feel like, I don't know, is the damage done? Like he just signed a huge contract with this team, and they're kind of off on the wrong foot. And, even if you remember over the summer or several months ago, there was a point when he was negotiating with his contract. He kind of deleted everything Cardinals related on his Instagram feed. So there seems to be like this, I don't want to say bad blood, but yeah, kind of, it's not all rosy between Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. So do you think something like that plays out like negatively? Do you know what I mean? Where, I don't know.
I don't know if it might. I don't know if it'll play out negatively per se, because I think at the end of the day, I don't know why they put that clause in. I guess he's John was mentioning before, he was like some serious gamer or something, or something like that. The report, yeah, or something like that, right? So, I mean, for me, it's tough to begin with. He had a great season last year, and we talked about like these rookie quarterbacks who really haven't established much in their careers yet, and it's still young, right? So I think a lot of people were off Murray last year, but then he's had such a great year last year that people are like, hey, now he signed this big contract and this whole controversy. So I don't know, like if that news would impact his prices negatively, because I think his prices were being affected regardless. Like a lot of people are trying to sell Murray last year and they were having a tough time. So I don't know. Like for me, I'm off personally the younger quarterbacks. I think, you see what happens with Mahomes, a guy who's won, some brass and rings, and look at the trends on his prices and what do you expect from, guys that aren't as talented as Mahomes? Are you expecting prices to go, bonkers? But like for me, realistically, I'm off of him at least until he accomplishes, a little more in his career.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I think it is some cause for concern. I think between Kyler Murray and the organization, not really that big of an issue, to be honest. But as a hobbyist, and somebody, if you're just studying Kyler Murray as like a human being, I'll probably be a little bit more cautious. Because in general, I think hobbyists, or if you're going to invest in a player, you like to see like character stuff, right? You like to see that, number one, he's a leader. He's like a film nerd in the studying film like 24/7, like a nerd of the game, working out like crazy. Like that's the kind of stuff you like to hear about a player that you're like investing into, right? And if you hear things like independent study clause and he's addicted to video games and blah, 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 this and that, it is, to be honest, for me personally, it would be a cause for concern in terms of what I think about Kyler Murray and how much money, or if any, that I would spend on the guy. When I think about hockey, video game issues amongst, this younger generation has been a big issue, actually. Most of the teams keep it hush-hush. But I've heard rumors, and again, just rumors, but I heard like Patrick Mahomes was one that was affected by video games. There was a player in Vancouver, one of their high draft picks. I think he was like 8th overall. Oli Ulevi. I heard he was like, it really affected him, right? Because you can imagine these guys, they're required to be on like high functioning, tip top athletic condition, certain diets, certain amount of sleep. And if you're supposed to be going to bed at 10 o'clock or whatever curfew you have, and these kids are going to bed at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning playing Fortnite, you're waking up at 7 o'clock to go to practice, and then boom, you're destroyed, right? And then you get your midday nap before game, and you're never in that peak physical form, and it just ruins. I heard that was a big issue amongst a lot of these kids coming up in the NHL. So I think, that's the stuff that I personally don't like to hear about before spending hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on a player. So for me as a hobbyist, hearing this kind of stuff, it'd be a bit of cause for concern for Kyler Murray.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure how I still feel about it, but I think the best thing Kyler Murray could do, obviously, is to shut up his critics, just show what he can do on the field, right? And I'm optimistic that he will. And another good season, I think he'll be on the right track. But yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in this case. All right, we'll see what happens. Hopefully for the injured players, they do end up staying healthy. And Kyler, show everyone what you got this season. All right, let's move on to our next segment, and it's another round of underrated, overrated. And this underrated or overrated segment is the grading edition, okay? I'm going to give you a list of 4 different types of grades from 4 of the major grading companies, and you tell me if it's underrated or overrated. All right, so let's just start, and it'll make more sense along the way.
Okay.
BGS, all right? BGS slabs with no subs.
Oh,
underrated or overrated?
Underrated. Oh, how could this be overrated or underrated?
Do you think there's value?
I hate it though.
It's trash.
I hate it. Why don't you just pay for the subgrades, man?
Yeah.
You don't think there's any play?
There is a play. You know what? Like the old me would have cracked that bad boy out,
right.
Hoping for like a true gem 9.5 if it was a 9.5, or if it was a 9, hoping for a bump. Right? But no one these days, it's like, man, you might be stuck with it because, they've been downgrading lately a lot. It's like a 9.5, old 9.5, that's probably an 8 today.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I don't know how to say this. I don't like them.
So I guess you would say it's overrated.
I guess so. A little bit. You know, I used to like them. I used to think they're underrated, but I think they're overrated now. Get the subgrades. Pay the extra money. Stop being cheap.
So I'm just saying there must be a reason why they don't. You know, maybe they just kind of examine the card themselves. Oh, and
it's
you think
cheaper.
It's a cost play?
It's a cost.
It's like $10-$20 cheaper, so to not get subgrades.
Oh, okay.
Some people, just
Come on,
want to
stop
do the
being
flip.
so cheap.
Yeah,
Right.
they make
Don't
the extra...
do that, man. Don't do it. Just sub with CSG or something. Don't do that.
I did crack remember those 1986 the Michael Jordan, the promo cards?
Yeah.
Promo cards?
Yeah, the Nike promo. It was oversized cards.
Right, the Nike.
We did. Yeah. I did get a 9 with no subgrades, and then we ended up crossing that to get subgrades, and it was worth it because obviously the value with subgrades they ended up being decent.
Right.
Like it was a 9 sub with decent subgrades. So
yeah.
it ended up becoming a bump like from what it was worth at that time.
Sure.
Obviously the prices crashed. Right. But yeah, there are advantages. I've seen it before. I've seen so just throwing out there.
Yeah. I could see why people might say it's underrated because no question there is a bit of a crack and resubmit play here because the no sub BGS card goes for cheaper than this, even if it's Min Gem, like a Min Gem 9.5 with a no sub BGS 9.5. That's a Min Gem. It's the same card, but the no sub version probably sells for a discount. So no question there is a crack and resubmit opportunity there. But if you've seen Lamine James's latest IG post, he like hand delivered a whole bunch of cracked subs at the National. The dude spent like $7,000. He got not one crossed over properly. Like,
oh my god!
Wow.
Literally $7,000 on a whole bunch of PSA. You know they just come back with the label saying, min grade. Felt so bad for the guy. Like, oh man, brutal. Man,
that sucks.
Whatever. He did it for the content.
Yeah,
he did it for the content. I salute you.
Win-win.
Yeah, good on Lamine.
So we don't do that, okay?
Yeah. So that's a warning to those that want to play that crack and resubmit game. So I'm gonna say overrated. I hate it, man. Like anytime I see it, I just think of the person who subbed that thing. Like, why didn't you just pay the $10 or $20 or whatever? Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's like, it's garbage. I don't like it at all. Overrated.
All right, I think it's overrated too, but I think it's I didn't even think about like they didn't want to spend that extra $10, but like I feel like there must be something wrong with one of the subs, and they're like, oh, I'll just get a slab BGS, so I don't trust it. That's why I wouldn't buy one and to crack and resubmit.
There was one time this is how I remember. There's a guy who somebody posted a 9.5 without subs. Like they're like, why didn't you get the subgrades? Right. He said, I didn't want to pay the extra money.
That's exactly what it is, for sure. They're just being cheap, 100%.
Yeah, that stuck with me.
Okay.
So it's like, these guys do it for the $10.
Yeah, okay.
At least at the time, like a couple of years ago.
You know what? To be fair, I don't think many people are submitting to BGS with the no subs. I think if you probably looked at BGS stats, I'm sure it's very, very minimal these days. Back 2 years ago, back 3 years ago, before the hobby went nuts, I'm sure people underestimated how much subgrades were valued in the hobby, right? In the space. So they thought, you know what? If I get a Min Gem, which I think this is, back then it might have been, we don't know the stats if we don't have it in front of us, but the no subs versus subs Min Gem 9.5 might have been the same value. So why pay the extra $20 to eat into your profits, right? So I think back in the day with some of those floating around, it made sense, to be fair to these cheapos, but
sorry if we've offended you with that comment.
Yeah,
You're
I'm
one
not.
Of those BGS.
Yeah,
notes.
sorry, not sorry.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Ready? SGC Gold Label.
I think I'm going to say underrated because the price that some of these SGC Gold go for sometimes they're like at PSA 10 values, which I think SGC Gold is, their version of pristine. The only knock I'll say is they have the weakest labels. Like, give me a little more gold on that, that label, not just the outside trim. You barely know you have a gold label at times, right? So that's the only knock. But I think from a price point perspective, sometimes SGC Gold labels go for way cheaper than they should, and there's extreme value. So I'm going to say underrated.
Okay.
Right. I'm saying overrated. Sorry, SGC. I think it's overrated. I know back a year ago when we first started, or over a year ago when we first started this pod, we were liking the gold label. The more and more I looked at it, I'm with Young. Like it's a pretty underwhelming label for what it is for that card. And I think because of that, some people actually get kind of confused, right? Because the gold label is supposed to be the flawless card. But some people think because it doesn't look that special, this is kind of equal to a PSA 10, or it's equal to, at best, like a BGS 10. This is not a black label. This is not a super, super special card. It's just like a pretty strong SGC 10, right? So I think even though SGC meant it for it to be pristine and to be a flawless card, I think because of the underwhelming marketing, label, all of that stuff, people don't see it as that special. So it's, to me, the prices are lower than it should be, but I still think it's overrated. I think SGC needs to clean it up.
Yeah, I think it's underrated. Like, if you see the value of some of these SGC Gold Label cards, like there is certainly a premium on the value of those cards.
Right.
And I think SGC intentionally, like they're really, they don't just give out SGC Gold labels. Like it is pretty rare, right? So I like that. And really, it's just a simple fix. If SGC listens to our podcast and hears us how we hate the current look of the SGC Gold Label, like if they change it, I'm sure they'll re-slab the one currently that's out, and then it's still, the process is still the same. It's really hard to get SGC Gold Label, so it's just really an aesthetic play. They just got to change the look of it.
True.
And then so I think it's underrated, but I do agree with you guys. The label itself is a little bit weak, so hopefully they change that. All right, and speaking of grading companies that changed their look of their labels, CSG, their new labels, underrated or overrated?
So this is completely opposite of the SGC Gold Label for me, because I think it was a great move for CSG, to be honest. But honestly, the last time I remembered CSG was the last time we talked about it on the podcast. Right. So for me, it serves absolutely no value. So I'm going to say overrated, because it really doesn't serve a purpose in my kind of portfolio, because I don't have any CSG graded cards. With that said, I think they did a great job with their new labels. I do like them, but I still think they're overrated.
Okay.
I liked them when they first came out. I liked it right from the start. I think I mentioned it on the pod. And now that it's been a number of months, I still like it. I really like them, actually. And I've heard, I never got to really touch a CSG case in person. But Neo Card and Comics, one of the YouTubers that I follow, he has some, and he said in person, it is the cleanest slab you could find. Like PSA slabs, they already kind of come with like buffed scratches sometimes, and it just looks kind of hazy once in a while. But he was mentioning how the CSG slabs, they feel solid, they feel premium, they're super, like super slick, pristine windows, clarity, all of that stuff. So it sounds great. I think the label looks amazing. I'm all about it. And the only problem is overrated, underrated. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but CSG prices have been doing pretty decent, man. Like they're not, like I have been searching for steals and deals with CSG, and it's quite hard. Like I think the pricing is very, very similar to SGC, which is not what I've been wanting. I've been wanting to get some steals. So can I say it's underrated? I don't know. Might be like rightly rated. Can I say it's overrated? I don't know either. So I'll say
Properly rated.
Yeah, I'll say 49%. Like just barely underrated. Barely underrated.
How many CSG slabs do you have?
0.
Overrated.
Who are you kidding? Come on.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know what? That being said, I'm with you, John. I think they're slightly underrated as well. Like, they're old green slabs, like labels, like
cheap.
Automatically, I was not interested in any of their slabs. You know what I mean? Like, it's just an automatic pass. But now, it's a little bit more modernized. I still don't. It's not the greatest in terms of the look of the label for me.
Sure.
But it's certainly getting more attention from, I feel like, generally speaking, from collectors. And, I also heard their CSGs, like 9.5 is really hard to get. So, like, not a lot of people, but I've heard of some people, like, trying to cross those over. Yeah, right?
But you don't want to be known for, like, the horror of, of grading. It's like,
yeah.
That's
like all CSG is good for.
Yeah, it's like you're the pre thing for the PSA event,
Yeah. So what do they got to do to be like, gain legit market share?
I don't know, man. I think
they've been gaining pretty decently.
Honestly, I forgot about CSG since we last talked about it. Like if you look at my eBay search history, there will be no CSG activity at all.
Right.
So it's like, for me, it's like, that's kind of weird. I do like their slabs, don't get me wrong, but that's why I said it was overrated, because, no marketing, nothing in terms of the hobby. I don't see them around. I see more FCG, to be honest, just in my, I guess, in my feeds and stuff like that, right? So maybe I need to start following CSG to kind of see their slabs more.
Yeah. That being said, I'm still saying underrated. I think there's certainly a play there to,
For sure.
to get good deals.
Right.
Yeah. But apparently you got to search for it harder, according to John. So we'll see. Okay. The last one, good old PSA. I thought about this because the LeBron James triple logo man was graded PSA Authentic. What do you guys think about that PSA Authentic slab label?
Oh, I don't think we could just, since you're in the article, I don't want to, bash PSA now, and just say they're overrated. But going back, I think PSA Authentic is actually is needed, and I don't mind a PSA Authentic because, I respect that, why people do it. Obviously, it's not good enough for a good grade or a decent grade in that card. But I think it still serves its purpose in terms of some cards. In terms of some cards, they're not worth grading, but you want them authenticated in terms of it is a real card, right? So it's like, it doesn't necessarily have to be graded. There could be, there's cards that have creases at the back from manufacturer, and it would probably grade like I don't know, these days, like a 2 or 3 or something like that on a modern card. It's kind of like, I don't know about that whole look. So it's like, for the price that, some of these authentic slabs are, it goes back to the kind of like, buy what you love and buy the card instead of the grade. And if there's a card that's unaffordable, for instance, an authentic slab is a perfect kind of like, a viable option to still enjoy the card that you want to target without, going crazy on like a PSA 10 or even like a PSA 9 that you have to spend an arm and a leg, right? So I'm going to say underrated.
Okay.
Even though I think PSA is overrated as a whole company.
there's Kyung's weekly dig.
And I still said, I just sent more cards to PSA. I'm telling you, it's like, it's a trap.
Speaking of labels, BGS lucky we're not talking about their, hey guys, here's a new label. Just kidding. Right. Fiasco.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I PSA Authentic, I think it is underrated. I like it a lot. But it's for a specific play, right? Like, you're looking at very rare, highly desired cards that should go into a PSA Authentic. We're talking LeBron James rookie gold refractor authentic, right? Probably gets a PSA 7 or a 6. You put it in an authentic slab, and I think it has high appeal and value. Another great example is Hyung. Remember I told you to follow that the Wander Franco.
It's still sold for so
Dude,
much.
Crazy! It's sold for like just over 11K or something like that. Anyways, if people have been watching, this past week there was a Wander Franco Bowman First Auto Gold Refractor, authentic, not in any kind of slab, but it was being sold raw, and the one caveat was the back had a full-on crease, as if the card was sort of like bent in half and then re-flattened. Really bad crease on the back. But that, I was telling Hyung, like, if you can get that card for very cheap, that is a play where you pick that up for cheap and put it in an authentic slab. And I think you would...
Auto 10.
Authentic Auto 10, or even if you didn't even want it the auto, just authentic slab, I think that card would do really well in auction. So I thought that was a great play. So these are the type of cards we're talking about. It's not, you don't do PSA Authentic obviously on some crap base card, but big time, high valued, monster, highly desired cards. I think it's a great play.
Okay. You know what? I was going to say it's overrated because, I do see PSA Authentic on like modern cards. You know what I mean? Right. So it's obviously the seller or the collector thought it wouldn't grade well enough, right? So, but yeah, I totally agree with you guys. If it's like a highly desirable rare card, it definitely serves a function. So in that case, underrated. So I guess it depends on the card, but yeah, and that's why for the triple logo man, I had no problem with the PSA Authentic label on that.
Right. There's only card. One of them, right? So it's like, who cares what the grade is at the end of the day, right? Yeah,
exactly. All right, another fun edition of Underrated, Overrated. We'll think of a new one for a future episode. All right, let's end off the show with our weekly segment, Pick One. And if you're a first-time listener, this is when we put up 2 cards or 2 sets each, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in. And as usual, we always ask Hyung to start things off. That's all right.
Let's do it. With all the Soto top trade this past week, I'm going to go a couple cards that I think are decently priced, and you see some actions, especially over the last couple months. Soto's prices dipped. You kind of see a bump in just more recently. And I'm going to pair up the 2018 Topps Update Juan Soto Rainbow Foil PSA 10. So it's a pop 373, right? And the last few sales were at $750 to $975. Okay, versus a 2018 Topps Chrome Update Pink Refractor PSA 10, and that's a pop 721, and the last few sales were $1,000 to $1,150. So a higher pop card going for a little more. I guess the pink is a little more desirable from a bling aesthetics perspective. Paper versus chrome, that whole debate. But what are you guys picking as the better investment? If I had about $1,000, do I come under budget with the rainbow foil as my good investment, or do I pay the extra and grab a pink? Now that Soto is a Padre.
Right. Last year, I was on the hunt for both of these cards. I may have actually used this in one of our 1v1s as a question to you guys. And at the time, I think I had fell on what I decided what I wanted, and I started watching, and it's the pink refractor. So for me, it's definitely the pink refractor. I think the pricing is close enough to justify going upwards, especially, they're both awesome cards. I think they're both great buys. We're talking long-term, short-term. They are Soto's flagship image. There are not many variations that you can get, and these are the 2 entry variations. The chrome is double the population, but it's chrome. It's shiny. If it's going into your PC, it looks beautiful. So it's the pink for me, and they're super liquid. So I think you can't really go wrong. But me personally, I think if both kind of go up and down, and I see both as very similar. I can't say I think the rainbow foil has more potential than the pink or the vice versa. I think they're both very, very equal, and they'll go up in ratio very similarly. So if that's the case, I'd want to buy the one that I like staring at as a PC card. So it's going to be the pink refractor for me.
Interesting. How about you, Clark?
I'm going to go, man, I do recall this being a pick one before, and I can't remember what I chose. I feel like I chose the pink chrome refractor the first time. I'm flipping. I'm going with rainbow foil this time because, I don't know, like, maybe it's hanging out with you guys. Like, you know, when I first started collecting, I'm like, chrome, you know, the shiny thing's always better. But have more appreciation for paper products.
Yeah.
OG,
you know,
OG paper.
OG, and if they're, you know, and with the rainbow foil, you know, it's just harder to, in my opinion, get it in really good condition. So if it's a PSA 10,
100%,
right? And it's a lower pop, I like that. And yeah, you know, I like the look of rainbow foils. You know, you just kind of shift it left to the right. You like the shine that, you know, that you see off the light. Right. And yeah, so all things, and then, you know what, for some reason, my personal bias, but I just think pink refractors are like, it's just a cheaper parallel. Maybe it's because I see so many in basketball as well, especially where it's just like it's a dime a dozen. So like that's ingrained in my head. So, you know, that's probably has a factor to my decision. But yeah, I'm going with rainbow foil in this case.
I was thinking where the Soto pinks came from, but I think they were like mega boxes that year. And that's where the kind of pink, the mega box, I think.
It's usually cellos, right?
It's usually cellos. Yeah, and then you get the pink pack. That was in 2019, but I'm not sure in 2018. But yeah, this one's tough for me because I'm paper OG. You know, Chrome is I guess the more modern love, and I think the rainbow foil is such a beautiful card, like aesthetically. I think it's so underrated. If there's a parallel, I think rainbow foil is one of the most, obviously for condition reasons as well. It's very difficult to gem. And at the price point, lower pop, you know, I'm buying that rainbow foil PSA 10 Soto and a box of Stadium Club for under the price of that pink. You know? Yeah.
Slam dunk.
Easy.
All right. Hyung and I win. John, sorry. Next time.
I'll be laughing with my $1,200 while you guys cry with your trash Stadium Club pulls.
You might be right. All right. John, you want to go?
Yeah. So in true Mahomes searching fashion, Clark, as you mentioned, Optic Holo prices being what they were last week, I started doing some research on Mahomes and realized, man, this is going to be my 1v1. 2017 Mahomes Prizm BGS Min Gem sells for around $1,550, which I couldn't believe, versus that Optic Holo 2017 PSA 10. Last two sold for roughly around $1,850. There's two more auctions that ended this week. They're right around $1,850. You might be able to predict Optic Holo might drop a bit more, but that also means maybe the BGS Min Gem falls as well. But anyways, regardless, Prizm BGS 95 Min Gem $1,550 versus the Optic Holo at $1,850. PSA 10.
I can go on this one first. Yeah, for some reason, and I think this is going to be an easy one for me because it's just really a play on the look of the card. I'm still a huge fan of the Optic design. You know, you can actually see his face, and versus the
helmet.
The helmet, you know, it could be anyone under. No, it's and you know, like the Prizm. I guess I don't know why, but it's certainly a bias of my own. Like with silver prisms, I just like it in a PSA 10 slab. right? And
Sure.
and the Optic Holo, the price seems to be right, and it's in a PSA 10. And I think in a previous episode I mentioned, with BGS, like I'm still a fan, but I'm hedging my bets, so I'm like only looking for true gems at this point. So yeah, you could get the certain discount with the min gem,
Yeah.
but I'd rather pay a little bit more for the true gem. And then if that's the case, I'd rather just get a PSA 10 of the Optic Holo, which I like the design better anyways. So, and it's a holo, so yeah, I'm going with the Optic Holo in this case.
Yeah, good point. I'm gonna agree with Clark because that Optic Holo PSA 10 looks amazing, like eye appeal, and I think it would have been different if it was a true gem, because I think Prism's Prism is still king, but
Yeah.
I mean that year 2017 Optic, it's super low pop. There's not a lot of holos floating around versus silver prisms. So I'm gonna go Optic Holo. I think the card itself has tremendous eye appeal, and in the long run, I think it's gonna be a monster card.
As much as I like Mahomes, football for me in general, I view it as a stepping stone to something bigger eventually. So whatever football play I make usually is in the form of a short-term play.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes was probably an exception because I do enjoy watching him. But the Prism is king. And when I look at that price, I was shocked to see that price, by the way. PSA 10 goes for, what did you mention last week, Clark? Like 3,800?
Yeah.
I think min gem BGSs have been fallen to like 50% or lower. And this is one of those cases. It's extremely low. We're like talking like 35% of the PSA 10. If and when Mahomes rebounds, and again, I'm looking at this as an investment for me to make some money on, to use it as a stepping stone to a bigger investment. I don't know if I've ever recommended BGS 95 Min Gem on our podcast, but I think this is a situation because the Prism is king, and that is a big time card, and we're talking Mahomes here. There was no base, right? This is Prism. It's Prism Silver, right?
Right. True.
So Prism Silver, lower population. If and when Mahomes bounces back, his cards start to come back. It's going to be that card that leads the charge. And I think a Min Gem will have good, I think it'll be liquid. I think it'll have really good trade value. You'll be able to put it into something very easily. So I like the play better. As much as I personally want the Optic Holo, if I'm really being real with myself, I think it's a really great play. So I'm picking the Prism BGS 95 Min Gem.
Yeah. No, fair point. Definitely could see that side as well. Yeah, good one. All right, we'll end off with my 1v1. So on one side, I got the Mike Trout 2009 Bowman Chrome base rookie auto PSA 10. I think last sold for about 20,000, right? So it's a grail card for a lot of people. And on the other side, I got Stephen Curry Topps Chrome Refractor, numbered to 500, PSA 9, and it sold for a bit more, 24K. And the reason why I'm asking this is because of our previous segment where if we're really concerned about Mike Trout, are you willing to spend the 20K for a PSA 10, right? Wow. PSA 10, his iconic Bowman Chrome rookie auto. Or would you pay a little bit more, because you're a little bit concerned of Mike Trout's career trajectory for like a Stephen Curry, another GOAT type card, Topps Chrome Refractor, PSA 9?
You know my answer after what we talked about earlier today. I'm very weary on high-end Trout cards right now. I mean, that PSA 10 is a monster card, though. Mm-hmm. So it's tough, but so is that refractor, right? I honestly think, man, if this was probably in May, I'd probably say the Trout. But I'm going to have to go with the Curry after all this discussion today. Just stay on the safe side, Like, I think I would be very stressed if I drop 20K on a Trout with a lot of uncertainty right now. So I'm gonna say the Curry Topps Chrome Refractor, numbered to 500.
PSA 9. Okay.
PSA 9, yeah.
20K is not our wheelhouse. It would be like absolute grail hunting for us. And if that's the case, I've mentioned it before, and Will kind of mentioned it as well. I'm not a big fan of like a lot of the older Bowman first images, like Acuna and Soto looking like they're playing t-ball with these giant helmets and stuff. Like I'm just not. And then we're talking. It is a PSA 10. I'll give it that. Pretty awesome. But the base rookie auto that's not a refractor, that's not numbered, with an image that's it is Mike Trout. Okay, it is iconic, but if I'm going grail hunting at 20,000, I would still want a card that I've really enjoyed staring at, PCing, showing off, whatever. And we're talking on the flip side, Steph Curry Topps Chrome Refractor. That is like, it is up there in the stratosphere of like grail hunting for a lot of people. And I'm, it is sort of a what have you done for me recently? Because you asked somebody 2 years ago, Mike Trout versus this. It's like 100 out of 100 is picking the Mike Trout, so I get it. I get that part. Mm-hmm. But yeah, for me, it's the Curry Topps Chrome Refractor, and even more so with a bit of the Mike Trout news. I think that would certainly, especially for us, if we're being real and we were actually spending this amount of money, I would probably be walking away from the 20K Mike Trout. I'd be like, I don't know if this is the most I would ever trade into or spend on a card. And I don't think it's the Mike Trout right now. So yeah, Steph Curry for me.
Okay. Yeah, I like the Trout, because it is an autograph card to on card, right? Like,
right.
It's
PSA 10.
PSA 10, exactly.
Right.
And, the Steph Curry, like Topps Chrome Refractor, like when you talk about the design or look of the card, it's just a mugshot of him wearing like a sweater. It's not even in a jersey or anything, right? So like the eye appeal for me isn't there. But that being said, like I think the injury concern we talked about earlier in the show is playing a definite factor for me, which is why I put this to test. So it's going to be a sweep in this case. But man, if Trout is healthy, like he is able to manage it well, and he does play 100. Like he plays the full season, and he starts to add those numbers, like 20K is going to be the steal of the century, right?
For sure.
Right. But it's definitely high risk for sure.
It is. Yeah. I mean, Steph Curry at this point, he has, me personally, I think he's cemented his legacy, right? And Trout, a lot of his pricing, even at 20K, GOAT status is already baked in. And now for the first time, we're saying, oh boy, like, is he actually going to play out this GOAT status? We don't know. And he may not even win ever at this point, right? So I think Steph Curry, he's cemented his legacy. And at this point, I think he has a chance to go higher than that. If he wins another ring, if he wins 2 rings, we could honestly see Steph Curry's name being in a conversation above LeBron James, as much as that delights my ears to hear that.
LeBron hater.
But I'm not joking. Mark my words, if Curry wins like another 1 or 2, we could see some of that conversation happening.
Nuts.
So I think that the ceiling of like Curry's cemented status could go higher versus Trout. It's looking really risky right now. So that's another angle on it.
All good. I like it. All right. With that, let's end off this show. We did give our shout outs at the top of the show, so I don't have to get into it again. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We've been doing it for over a year, and we're definitely appreciative of everyone listening, subscribing, following us. So we'll be back with a new episode next week. See you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.